Hi everyone, welcome to Miss Adams Teaches Poetry. In this video we're going to be taking a look at Mary Casey's poem The Class Game from the edXL Conflict collection of poetry. We're going to be looking at 5 key moments of the poem, and I'm going to be taking you through elements of language and structure for your analysis. If you'd like some more information on context and a bit of information on form as well, there is another accompanying video for you to have a look at. But for now, get your flashcards ready and let's get started. Okay, so let's start off with the title of the poem. So first of all, we're going to notice that this is of course a metaphor, calling the ideas to do with class division and class war as a game, suggesting that in some ways class can be seen competitively, but you could also argue that it's a criticism of the way that in some cases people might trivialize issues to do with class if it doesn't affect them. You'll also notice that we've got the article the as opposed to which suggests that this game is something very specific that a lot of people are aware of. It's the class game, that kind of difference and difficulty with class division. So the poem opens with direct address. How can you tell what class I'm from? Obviously, it's a rhetorical question, but this rhetorical question is repeated throughout. It becomes a refrain up until the last question, which is on line 20, where it changes to why do you care? Which is kind of like the crux of the poem here. But it's very kind of direct. And what you also have is this device called hyperphora, which is when you pose a question and then you answer it, okay, or you add more information. So she says, how can you tell what class I'm from? I can talk posh like some. So notice the way that she's using deliberate non-standard forms here. I can talk posh, as opposed using it as an adjective as opposed to like an adverb. So it kind of creates a sense of irony. It's like I could talk posh if I wanted to. So if you're just basing this on the way that we speak, well, speech can be put on, accents can be affected. Later on in the poem, we've got this lovely moment, another rhetorical question, informally phrased with this conjunction, so why do you always wince when you hear me say "ta-ra mama" instead of "bye mummy dear"? So it's another rhetorical question. And I think this verb is brilliant, thinking about the impact of wince. Like wince suggests massive discomfort, and it's that sort of like snooty embarrassment. Like why does it make you sort of shudder to hear non-standard forms? And then we have this internal rhyme which creates a real sort of light-hearted, almost like jovial rhythm to her words. When you hear me say "ta-ra to me ma" instead of "bye mummy dear." And you'll notice we've got this juxtaposition in formality. So "ta-ra to me ma," so notice we've got non-standard forms again here, saying me instead of my. And then we've got this very kind of typically RP way of speaking, saying "bye" instead of "ta-ra," and then "mummy dear," mummy as opposed to "mum" or "ma." You'll notice that in this moment we have started moving into rhyming couplets. So this is, if you've looked at my context and form video, I mention it here. So line 6, this little bit, is where we start to see those rhyming couplets come in after the first 5 lines, which are more in free verse. Okay, so this is slightly further down. It's again in relation to another phrase of the question, how can you tell what class I'm from? So it's another sort of addition to the question. Because we live in a corpy, not like some in a pretty little semi-out Wirral way, and commute into Liverpool by train each day. Sorry, I know that's quite a long quote, but I kind of needed to get it all in. So we've got another informal conjunction here, cause, so that's been shortened from because. Now, a corpy is the Liverpool Corporation. Essentially, it was the equivalent in 1979 of social housing. So she's saying, is this why you can tell what class I'm from? Because I live in social housing, rather than some pretty little semi. Note the adjectives here kind of creating this sort of sugary, idyllic little description. When she uses the adjective little, I don't think she's actually talking about the size of the house, because she's showing the other side. It's more the kind of sweetness of this alternative type of housing that's out Wirral Way. Contextually, that is a wealthier area out in the suburbs. And then this added bit of information, commute into Liverpool by train each day. That might seem like a bit of a throwaway, but actually it is a comment about class division and what, you know, your wealth determines, you know, your capacity to travel. You've got the adverbial each day reminding that people that live out Wirral Way can afford to live away and keep training in and spending that money day after day after day, whereas obviously she's talking about their Corpy, which is much more in the central. So it might seem like a throwaway comment, but it is actually pointing out a difference. Okay, so this is coming in line 15. Again, it's another continuation of the question. How can you tell what class I'm from? Have I a label on my head? Now, this is interesting because Casey's using inverted syntax here. Rather than saying, do I have a label, which is the kind of standard form, this is actually a much more formal way of phrasing it. Have I a label on my head? Obviously, we're dealing with metaphor again here. And then you've got this juxtaposition and another on my bum. So you've got, it's this kind of almost like point that's being made again about the way that you speak is a kind of affectation, as in you can amend it, you can change it. So it's not a real, or it shouldn't be a real kind of deciding factor in class. And then you've got the kind of colloquial on me bum, much more light-hearted. And then a slightly more metaphorical kind of stance coming through these rhetorical questions. Notice that we've got 3 on the trot here, repeated rhetorical questions. Or is it because my hands are stained with toil? Toil meaning work, meaning labour. So you've got the markings of work on your hands instead of soft lily white with perfume and oil. So you've got this massive juxtaposition in imagery. And again, you know, particularly going back in time, a sign of your class status was about how pale you were, because it meant that you didn't go outside and work in the sun. And obviously your hands aren't stained because they are nurtured and they are looked after because you're not working. So that's where the juxtaposition is. And then my final quote in my 5 key quotes, and again, I apologize because technically it's 2, is right from the end. Now, this comes after the amended refrain, why do you care? Which again is that kind of like the crux of the poem. Now, we've got this lovely exclamative or exclamatory sentence, well mates, minor as well. Note how kind of informal the lexis is here, the noun mate instead of friend. A cleaner is my mother, a docker is my brother. Now, look at this. We've got inverted syntax. Again, normally you'd say my mother is a cleaner, my brother is a docker, but it's been swapped round to put the emphasis on the actual jobs. Cleaner, docker. Okay, so perhaps work that is associated with more kind of working class background. And you've got, again, the non-standard forms with me mother, me brother, and it's nicely syntactically parallel, almost like they're kind of listing these aspects of themselves and who they are. It's about their identity. And then obviously we end with this declarative statement, and I'm proud of the class that I come from. So this concludes the poem with a really clear statement about identity, about class, about how, you know, making these distinctions, it doesn't matter. You just are proud of who you are, where you're from, and what your identity is. That's it from me. Hopefully that was helpful. If you've got any questions, then just drop me a note in the comments and I will do my best to come back to you. There is another video that goes with this one that takes you through context and some points to do with form and structure as well. So do have a little look at that. And please subscribe if you haven't already. 1, it's really super helpful for me. And 2, also you'll get alerts when the next videos are ready for you. Thanks again. Happy revising.